we've touched a little bit on the sort of the long-term piece to this. Again, we've talked about retention and how important it is for long-term success itself. I want to talk a little bit about some of the best practices that you've seen in terms of ensuring long-term success after transitioning a locum provider to a permanent role. Right? We talk about retention. Phil, what are some of those best practices that you've kind of adopted to be able to then say, okay, we have somebody here now, they are going to stay?
Yeah, we treat them like any other provider. I think that cultural component of an organization that's often the Achilles heel, right? So we make sure that we're having regular check-ins with our providers, whether they're perm or locum that has become perm, to see what is going on. How are things working for you? How are you adjusting to Buffalo? How do you like the hospital? How's the rapport with surgeons? Right, go Bills.
Right.
We
No
really
snow.
try, right. We try to make sure that they, if there's a concern, that we learn about it early, and then we can do our best to correct whatever that concern may be, because it really comes back to this retention piece. So, we just continue to ensure that there's clinical excellence from the provider, that, they're meeting our expectations, but also that we're meeting theirs. And I think that work comes up front when we talk about, converting someone into a role like this of, okay, here's the deal. Here's really what we expect from you very clearly. And, sunshine makes the best disinfectant. So we lift the rock up and talk about the organization. We talk about the system. We talk about anything that might be perceived as negative. But by setting those clear expectations in advance, we have very, very good retention rates.
Yeah, that's what we started our conversation on, is the fact that you need to build those relationships and you need to build those conversations to be able to create realistic expectations and really make sure that folks are fit, that they enjoy where they are, and then that in turn leads to more retention than itself. Lance, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, in terms of that long-term success piece and the strategic element of this as well.
Sure. So my disclaimer is I've been in perm physician recruitment for 12 years, so I can't speak specifically from locums to perm, but in hearing Phil, it sounds like it's very similar. Once they're perm, they're basically a perm physician. So one thing that we've implemented that's been a huge help over the years is 30, 60, 90, 120-day check-ins. You can only imagine how many things, like let's say Phil and his team have great rapport with a physician, they get them contracted, they're coming to the area, and they have issues with housing, or then they have issues dealing with credentialing and licensing. That can cause a ton of stress on the physician and their family. So just by being proactive, checking in, making sure everything's going smooth, I can't tell you how many unique instances I've uncovered. We've had physicians who completed medical school overseas and now their institution of training is closed. So we have to find a way to obtain their transcripts and have those sent along. Or someone had lost an offer on a house and now needs to find a condo today ASAP. Just these things that can really go the extra mile in candidate retention, satisfaction, and those sorts of items. But I would say anybody who's enjoys recruiting or has experienced long-term success in the industry, you really have to find it fulfilling or enjoy helping people. And that's what it's really all about, is just making sure that candidate and their families, set up for the future and still excited about the opportunity that they chose.